The mud splattered across Martha Webb's worn dress as the stagecoach rattled past, soaking her completely while the ladies inside pressed lace handkerchiefs to their noses and looked away as if poverty itself might be contagious. Martha stood there in the late afternoon sun of Ukiah, California, her shoulders squared despite the humiliation burning her cheeks, watching the finely dressed women disappear toward the hotel, where she used to take tea with her mother before the fever took both her parents within a week of each other. That was 3 years ago in 1877, when Martha was just 19, and the world still held promise. Now, at 22, she worked as a washerwoman, her hands red and cracked, her body thin from skipping meals to pay the rent on the tiny shack she called home at the edge of town. She wrung out her skirt as best she could and continued down Main Street, her basket of cleaned linens heavy on her hip. The September heat made the wet fabric cling uncomfortably to her legs, but she kept her chin up. Pride was about all she had left, and she would not let these people take that from her too. "Poor thing," she heard Mrs. Henderson whisper to Mrs. Crawford outside the general store. "Such a shame what happened to the Webb family. Used to be so respectable." "I heard she can barely afford to eat," Mrs. Crawford replied, her voice dripping with pity that felt more like judgment. "Living in that hovel by the creek. A young woman alone like that, it is not proper." Martha pretended not to hear, though their words settled like stones in her stomach. She had heard it all before. The pitying looks, the whispered conversations, the subtle way people moved aside when she approached as if misfortune might spread like disease. Some of the ladies from church had offered charity, their eyes soft with sympathy that made Martha feel small and broken. She had refused every time. She would work for what she needed, even if it meant her hands bled and her back ached. She delivered the linens to the boarding house where Mrs. Patterson counted out her payment in coins so small they seemed an insult. "That is all I can spare today, dear," the woman said, though Martha could see the silver candlesticks gleaming on the mantel. "Times are hard for everyone." Martha nodded and pocketed the coins without complaint. She knew better than to argue. Work was scarce enough for a woman in her position. She could not afford to lose what little she had. The walk home took her past the saloon where raucous laughter spilled into the dusty street, past the blacksmith shop where the heat from the forge made the air shimmer, past the row of neat houses with their painted shutters and flower boxes that belonged to another life entirely. Her shack sat at the very edge of town, near where the creek ran shallow and brown. The roof leaked when it rained and the walls let in the winter cold, but it was hers. She had kept it when the bank took everything else. She was almost to her door when she heard the horse behind her. She turned to see a man dismounting, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat pulled low against the sun. He wore dusty trail clothes and carried himself with the easy confidence of someone who had spent more time under open sky than beneath a roof. She recognized him vaguely as one of the ranch hands from the Donovan spread, though she could not recall his name. "Miss Webb." His voice was deep and respectful. He removed his hat, revealing dark hair and eyes that were a striking shade of gray-blue. His face was weathered and handsome in a rough-hewn way, with a strong jaw and sun-creased skin that spoke of long days in the saddle. "Yes." Martha kept her hand on her door, wary. Men rarely sought her out with good intentions, and she had learned to be cautious. "Name is Ryder Donovan, madam. I own the ranch about 5 miles west of town." He held his hat in both hands, turning it slightly. "I know this is forward, and I apologize for approaching you without proper introduction, but I have a proposition I would like to discuss with you." Martha's guard went up immediately. She had heard propositions before from men who thought a poor woman might be desperate enough to compromise her virtue. "I am not interested in anything improper, Mr. Donovan," "No, madam, nothing like that." He actually looked offended by the suggestion, which gave Martha pause. "I am looking for a wife, Miss Webb, a proper wife with a proper marriage and all the respect that comes with it." Martha stared at him, certain she had misheard. "I beg your pardon. I know how this sounds," Ryder continued, his voice steady and sincere. "I know we have never spoken before, but I have noticed you in town, and I have made inquiries about your character. Everyone says you are honest and hardworking, that you have borne your circumstances with dignity. Those are qualities I admire. You want to marry me?" Martha could not keep the disbelief from her voice. Why would a ranch owner want to marry the town charity case? Ryder's jaw tightened slightly. "You are not a charity case, Miss Webb. You are a woman who has faced hardship and survived it. That takes strength." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I am not a romantic man, Miss Webb. I am 30 years old, and I have spent the last 12 years building my ranch into something successful. But a ranch needs more than cattle and good land. It needs a family. I need a wife, and I think we could make a good partnership." "A partnership," Martha repeated, the word feeling strange in her mouth. "I am offering you security, Miss Webb. A home, food, protection. In return, you would manage my household, and eventually, if we are both agreeable, we would build a family together." He met her eyes directly, no shame or hesitation in his gaze. "I will not lie to you and claim this is some grand love match, but I promise you respect, honesty, and a good life. That is more than most marriages start with." Martha's mind reeled. A part of her wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. This man, this stranger, was standing in front of her shack offering her everything she had lost: security, respectability, a future. It seemed too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "Why me?" she asked again. "Surely there are plenty of women in town who would jump at such an offer." "Maybe so," Ryder acknowledged. "But they would want romance and poetry and things I cannot give. You understand what it means to work hard for what you have. You would not expect me to be something I am not." He paused. "And I think maybe I can offer you something you need too. A fresh start. A chance to hold your head up again." The words struck deeper than Martha wanted to admit. How long had it been since she had felt like more than an object of pity? How many nights had she lain awake wondering how much longer she could survive like this? "I need time to think about this," she said finally. Ryder nodded, settling his hat back on his head. "Of course. Take all the time you need, Miss Webb. I am staying at the hotel in town for the next few days. You can send word when you have made your decision." He mounted his horse with practiced ease. "Whatever you decide, I want you to know that my offer comes with no expectations beyond what I have stated. You would have your own room until such time as you felt comfortable with more. This would be a marriage of respect first." He tipped his hat to her and rode off, leaving Martha standing in the dust, her wet dress already drying in the heat, her mind spinning with possibilities she had not dared to consider in 3 long years. That night, Martha lay on her thin mattress and stared at the ceiling where she could see stars through the gaps in the roof. Her stomach growled with hunger. She had eaten only a heel of bread and some withered carrots for dinner, saving the rest of her meager supplies for the rest of the week. Her hands throbbed from the lie in the wash water, and her back ached from bending over the scrub board. Was this really her life? Was this all she could hope for? Years of back-breaking work, of pitying looks, of slowly fading away until she became just another cautionary tale whispered over tea. Ryder Donovan's offer circled through her thoughts. A partnership, he had called it, not love but respect, not romance but security. Was that enough? Could it ever be enough? But then, what did she have now? And was waiting for some fairy tale prince to sweep her off her feet, really wise when she could barely afford to eat by morning. Martha had made her decision. She washed her face in the cold water from the basin, put on her least worn dress, and walked to the hotel with her spine straight and her jaw set. The clerk directed her to Ryder's room, and she knocked before she could change her mind. Ryder opened the door, surprise flickering across his face. "Miss Webb." "I accept your offer, Mr. Donovan," Martha said, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "But I have conditions of my own." He gestured for her to enter, leaving the door open for propriety's sake. "I am listening." "I want your word that you will never strike me or abuse me in any way. I want control over the household accounts, so I am never dependent on your goodwill for basic necessities. And I want your promise that if this marriage does not work, you will not turn me out without means to support myself." Ryder considered her words, then extended his hand. "You have my word on all accounts, Miss Webb. Anything else? Just one thing." Martha met his eyes. "I want honesty between us, always, no matter how difficult the truth might be." "Agreed." His handshake was firm and warm. "We can be married this Saturday if that suits you. That gives you a few days to prepare. I will arrange everything." "Saturday," Martha repeated and felt the ground shift beneath her feet. In 4 days she would be married. In 4 days her entire life would change. The news spread through Ukiah like wildfire. By noon, everyone knew that Ryder Donovan, one of the most eligible bachelors in the county, was marrying Martha Webb, the pitiful washerwoman who lived in a shack. The town buzzed with speculation and judgment. "He must have gotten her in trouble," Mrs. Henderson declared at the general store, her voice carrying. "Why else would a man like that marry a woman like her?" "Perhaps he feels sorry for her," Mrs. Crawford suggested. "You know men can be foolishly chivalrous sometimes." "Well, I give it 6 months before he realizes his mistake," another woman chimed in. "What does a washerwoman know about running a proper ranch house? She will embarrass him." Martha heard it all as she went about her final days of work, finishing up the job she had already committed to. She forced herself not to care, not to let their words pierce the fragile hope building in her chest. Let them talk. Let them judge. Soon she would have something they could not take from her. Ryder came by her shack the next day with a bundle under his arm. "I thought you might need a new dress for the wedding," he said, handing it to her. "I hope I got the size right. Mrs. Patterson at the boarding house helped me estimate." Martha unwrapped the bundle to find a beautiful dress in deep blue cotton, simple but well made, with lace at the collar and cuffs. It was the finest thing she had owned in years. Her throat tightened with emotion. "It is perfect," she managed. "Thank you. I also brought these." He handed her a smaller package containing a pair of new boots and stockings. "Figured you might need them too." Martha looked up at this man who was still essentially a stranger, this man who had seen her at her lowest and offered her a way up. "Why are you really doing this, Mr. Donovan?" He was quiet for a moment, his eyes scanning the horizon. "My parents died when I was 18, he said finally. "Left me and my younger sister alone. I worked myself near to death building that ranch, and my sister helped however she could. Then 2 years ago, she met a man from back east. Good man, treated her well. They got married and moved to Boston." He turned back to Martha. "Point is, I know what it is like to fight for survival. I know what it is like to have people look at you and see someone less than. My sister, she married for love, and I am glad she did. But I am a practical man, Miss Webb. I see a woman who fights, who survives, who refuses to give up even when the whole town has written her off. That is the kind of woman I want beside me." "I see," Martha said softly, understanding him a little better now. "Besides," Ryder added with a slight smile, "I figure we are both stubborn enough to make this work out of sheer determination if nothing else." Despite everything, Martha found herself smiling back. You might be right about that. Saturday dawned clear and warm, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed like a good omen. Martha dressed carefully in her new clothes, her fingers trembling slightly as she buttoned the dress. She had slept in the hotel the night before, Ryder having insisted on paying for a room so she would not have to walk from her shack on her wedding day. It was a small kindness, but it touched her nonetheless. The ceremony was to be held at the small church on the edge of town. Martha walked there alone, carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers she had picked herself. She had no family to give her away, no bridesmaids to attend her. It would be a simple, quiet affair. But when she reached the church, she stopped short. People filled the pews. Ranch hands from the Donovans spread, shopkeepers from town, even some of the ladies who had pitied her just days before. They had all come. Ryder stood at the altar in a new suit, his hair combed back, looking uncomfortable but determined. When he saw her, something softened in his expression. He walked down the aisle to meet her, offering his arm. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "You did not have to invite half the town," Martha whispered back. "I wanted them to see," Ryder replied. "Wanted them to know this is a real marriage, that I am proud to have you as my wife." The words settled around Martha's heart like a warm blanket. She took his arm, and together they walked to the altar. The preacher performed the ceremony, his words washing over Martha like a dream. She heard herself make her vows, heard Ryder make his, felt the cool metal of the ring as he slid it onto her finger. And then the preacher was pronouncing them man and wife, and Ryder was kissing her gently, respectfully, his lips warm and brief against hers. The congregation applauded, and Martha turned to face them as Mrs. Ryder Donovan. The pitying looks were gone, replaced by curiosity, speculation, and in some cases, what almost looked like envy. Mrs. Henderson pursed her lips in disapproval, but her daughter Catherine looked wistful. Even Mrs. Crawford seemed begrudgingly impressed. There was a small reception at the hotel, paid for by Ryder. Nothing fancy, but there was cake and punch, and people actually spoke to Martha as an equal for the first time in years. She found it disorienting, this sudden shift in her social standing. Just a week ago, these same people had crossed the street to avoid her. Now they congratulated her and wished her well. "You landed on your feet, girl," old Mr. Thompson from the feed store told her, his eyes twinkling. "Ryder Donovan is a good man. You will be happy." "I hope so," Martha replied, and found that she meant it. As the afternoon wore on, Ryder came to her side. "Ready to head home?" he asked. "It is about an hour's ride to the ranch. Home." The word felt foreign and wonderful. Martha nodded, suddenly nervous. This was real. She was really married to this man, really about to start a new life. They said their goodbyes and climbed into a wagon loaded with Martha's few possessions. Ryder clicked to the horses, and they started down the road leading west out of town. Martha watched Ukiah disappear behind them, watched her old shack grow smaller in the distance, and felt something loosen in her chest. She was leaving behind years of struggle and hardship. Whatever lay ahead, it had to be better than what she was leaving behind. The ride to the ranch took them through rolling hills dotted with oak trees, past streams that ran clear over smooth stones, through meadows thick with late summer grass. Martha had never been this far from town, and she found herself entranced by the beauty of the land. "That is the northern boundary of my property," Ryder said, pointing to a fence line. "We run about 500 head of cattle plus horses. I have 8 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse, and a woman named Rosa who comes in 3 times a week to help with the heavy cleaning and cooking. She is getting on in years, though, so I figure you will want to take over most of that yourself eventually." "I can cook and clean," Martha assured him. "I have been doing it for years." "I know you can." Ryder glanced at her. But this is different from scraping by in a shack, Martha. This is a big house with a lot of rooms. You will have help. You will not be doing it all alone anymore. The use of her first name felt intimate, though they were married now, so it was proper. Still, it sent a small flutter through her stomach. I am used to working hard, Ryder. I know you are. But you are the lady of the house now. That means something different. He paused. I do not want you to work yourself to death trying to prove something. You have already proven plenty. They crested a hill and Martha gasped. Below them, nestled in a valley with a creek running beside it, sat a beautiful ranch house. It was 2 stories tall, painted white with green shutters, surrounded by fenced pastures where horses grazed. Barns and outbuildings dotted the property, and in the distance she could see cattle grazing on the hillside. This is yours, she breathed. Ours, Ryder corrected. This is ours now. The house was even more impressive up close. Ryder helped her down from the wagon and led her inside. The front door opened into a spacious parlor with real furniture, rugs on the floor and curtains at the windows. There was a dining room with a table that could seat 12, a kitchen with a modern stove, and upstairs, 4 bedrooms. This one is yours, Ryder said, opening a door to reveal a room with a large bed, a wardrobe, a dresser with a mirror, and windows that looked out over the valley. Mine is across the hall. Like I said, we can take our time with the other aspects of marriage. I want you to feel comfortable here first. Martha walked to the window, looking out at the land bathed in golden afternoon light. A month ago, she had been eating withered carrots for dinner in a shack with a leaking roof. Now she stood in a beautiful bedroom in a house that belonged to her. It felt surreal. Are you all right? Ryder asked, concerned. Martha turned to him, and to her surprise, she felt tears on her cheeks. I am fine, she said, laughing a little. I am just overwhelmed. This is so much more than I expected. Ryder crossed the room and handed her a handkerchief. It is a lot to take in, I know, but you belong here, Martha. I need you to believe that. She wiped her eyes and nodded. I will try. That is all I ask. He moved toward the door. I will let you settle in. Dinner is usually around 6. Rosa left us a roast in the oven, so we will have something good tonight. After he left, Martha sank onto the bed, running her hands over the soft quilt. This was her life now. This room, this house, this man she barely knew. It should have terrified her, but instead, she felt something close to hope. The first few weeks of marriage were an adjustment. Martha threw herself into learning the rhythms of the ranch, waking early to make breakfast for Ryder and the hands, managing the household accounts like Ryder had promised she could, learning which horses were gentle and which had temperamental streaks. Rosa proved to be a godsend, teaching Martha the particular ways Ryder liked things done while also respecting her as the new lady of the house. Ryder was true to his word about giving her space. He was kind and respectful, treating her like a partner in every sense. They took their meals together and spent evenings in the parlor, Martha mending or knitting while Ryder reviewed ranch accounts or read. It was pleasant and comfortable, if not exactly romantic, but Martha found herself noticing things about him. The way he was patient with the horses, even the difficult ones. The way he paid his workers fair wages and treated them with respect. The way he always asked her opinion on household decisions rather than simply dictating what should be done. The way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, which was not often but always genuine when it happened. She noticed, too, the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she was not paying attention. There was something in his gaze that was more than mere partnership, something that made her heart skip in a way she had not expected. One evening in early October, about a month after their wedding, Ryder came in from the range looking troubled. Martha was in the kitchen preparing dinner and she looked up in concern. "What is wrong?" she asked. Ryder removed his hat and ran a hand through his hair. "We have been losing cattle, just a few here and there, but it is adding up. Found signs of rustlers on the North Range." Rustlers? Martha's stomach clenched. She knew rustling was a serious problem in cattle country and that it often turned violent. "I am going to have to set up watch rotations with the men," Ryder said. "Might mean I am gone overnight sometimes. Will you be all right here alone?" "I can handle myself," Martha assured him, though the thought of being alone in the big house at night was daunting. Ryder studied her face. "I could ask Rosa to stay with you when I am gone." "No, that is not necessary. She has her own family to tend to." Martha squared her shoulders. "I survived alone for 3 years, Ryder. I can manage a few nights." "You are not alone anymore, though," Ryder said quietly. "That is the point. You have someone to look out for you now." The words warmed her more than they should have. "And you have someone to come home to," Martha replied. "So you be careful out there." Something shifted in Ryder's expression, a softening that made him look younger. "Yes, madam," he said, and there was a warmth in his voice that had not been there before. The rustling problem escalated over the next few weeks. Ryder and his men set up camp on the North Range, taking turns keeping watch through the nights. Martha found herself missing his presence in the house, missing their quiet evenings together. She had not realized how much she had come to enjoy his company until it was gone. When he did come home, he was tired and worried, the stress showing in the tight set of his shoulders and the lines around his eyes. Martha made sure to have hot meals ready, to press his shirts so they were crisp, to listen when he needed to talk through problems. "I appreciate what you do," Ryder told her one evening, catching her hand as she reached across him to refill his coffee cup. "I know this is not what you signed up for, dealing with ranch problems and a husband who is never home." "I signed up for a partnership," Martha reminded him. "That means sharing the burdens as well as the benefits." Ryder's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a small gesture that sent warmth radiating up her arm. "Still, you make it easier. Coming home to you, to a warm house and a good meal and someone who actually cares how my day went, it means more than you know." Martha's breath caught at the sincerity in his voice. "It is not hard to care, Ryder. You have been good to me, better than I had any right to expect." "You had every right," Ryder said firmly. "You are my wife." The word hung between them, heavy with meaning. They had been married for 6 weeks now, living as business partners more than husband and wife. But something was changing, Martha could feel it. The way Ryder looked at her, the way her heart jumped when he entered a room, the way she found herself thinking about him during the day, wondering if he was safe, if he had eaten, if he was warm enough in the cold autumn nights. This was not the partnership they had agreed to. This was something more, something neither of them had planned on, and it terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. The rustling came to a head on a cold November night. Martha woke to the sound of gunshots in the distance, her heart pounding. She ran to the window but could see nothing in the darkness. She dressed quickly and hurried downstairs, lighting lamps as she went. It was nearly dawn when she heard horses approaching. She grabbed the rifle Ryder had taught her to use and positioned herself by the window, only relaxing when she recognized Ryder's tall form dismounting in the yard. But something was wrong. He was moving stiffly, favoring his left side. Martha threw open the door and ran to him. "I am all right," Ryder said before she could ask. "Just a graze. We caught the rustlers, but there was a fight." "Inside now," Martha ordered, her voice brooking no argument. She had seen enough injuries in her life to know what needed to be done. In the light of the kitchen, she could see the blood soaking through his shirt on his left side. "Take that off," she commanded, Already moving to heat water and gather clean cloth, Ryder obeyed, pulling his shirt over his head with a wince. The bullet had carved a furrow across his ribs, ugly and bleeding but not deep enough to be life-threatening. Martha cleaned it carefully, her hands steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "You could have been killed," she said, her voice tight. "But I was not," Ryder replied, watching her face. "You could have been." Martha pressed a clean bandage against the wound, perhaps a bit harder than necessary. "You have men who could have handled this. You did not have to be out there yourself." "Yes, I did. This is my land, my cattle. I would not ask my men to do something I would not do myself." "Your stubborn pride is going to get you killed one day," Martha snapped, and was horrified to feel tears pricking her eyes. Ryder caught her wrist gently. "Martha, look at me." She raised her eyes to his, and what she saw there made her breath catch. "I am sorry I scared you," he said softly, "but I am here. I am all right." "This time," Martha whispered. "But what about next time? What if there is a next time and you do not come back and I am left here alone again?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them, revealing more than she had intended. Ryder's eyes widened slightly in understanding. "You care," he said, wonder in his voice. "Of course I care," Martha said, frustrated. "You are my husband." "That is not what I mean." Ryder stood, ignoring his injury, and cupped her face in his hands. "You actually care about me, not just the security or the house or the partnership, about me." Martha wanted to deny it to protect herself, but she had promised him honesty. "Yes," she admitted. "I care, more than I expected to. More than I think is wise." "Why is it not wise?" Ryder asked, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. "Because this was supposed to be a practical arrangement. We were not supposed to feel things." "Maybe we were not supposed to," Ryder agreed. "But I do. I feel things, Martha. I have been feeling them for weeks now. I just did not know if you did too." Martha's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "What things?" she whispered. Instead of answering with words, Ryder bent his head and kissed her. Not the chaste, brief kiss of their wedding day, but a real kiss, deep and slow and full of all the things they had not said to each other. Martha melted into it, her hands coming up to rest on his bare chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart under her palms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ryder rested his forehead against hers. "I am falling in love with you, Martha Donovan," he said. "I did not plan on it, but it is happening all the same, and I think maybe you are falling a little bit in love with me too." Martha laughed, the sound watery with tears. "I think you might be right. So what do we do about it?" Ryder asked. Martha pulled back enough to look into his eyes, those gray-blue eyes that had become so dear to her. "I think we stop pretending this is just a partnership. I think we make this a real marriage in every sense. I think we take a chance on each other." Ryder smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed his whole face. "I think that is the best idea I have heard in a long time." He kissed her again, and this time Martha let herself feel everything she had been holding back. The fear, the hope, the growing love that had taken root in her heart without her permission. When his wound started bleeding again from the exertion, she made him sit down while she rebandaged it properly, but he kept her close the whole time, his hand in her hair, his eyes on her face. "I should get you to bed," Martha said when she had finished. "You need to rest." "Only if you come with me," Ryder replied. "I am done sleeping across the hall from you, Martha. If you are ready, I want you beside me." Martha felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she nodded. "I am ready." They went upstairs together to Ryder's larger room with its wide bed. Despite the circumstances being far from romantic, with Ryder injured and both of them exhausted, there was something profound about lying beside him, feeling the warmth of his body next to hers, his arm careful around her waist. "I never thought I would have this," Martha whispered into the darkness. "I thought I would spend my life alone, just surviving day to day. I never imagined I could be happy again." "You deserve happiness," Ryder murmured against her hair. "You deserve everything good, Martha. And I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have it." Martha turned in his arms, mindful of his injury, and kissed him softly. "We will make sure we both have it," she corrected. "That is what a partnership means." "A partnership built on love," Ryder agreed. "Even better." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other's arms, and when Martha woke to the morning sun streaming through the windows, she felt for the first time in years that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The news that the rustlers had been caught and turned over to the sheriff spread quickly through Ukiah. More interesting to the townspeople, however, was the visible change in the Donovan marriage. When Martha came to town now, she rode beside Ryder in the wagon, and anyone with eyes could see the way he looked at her, the way his hand lingered on her back when he helped her down, the way she smiled at him with genuine warmth. "Well, I never," Mrs. Henderson said to Mrs. Crawford as they watched the couple walk into the general store, Ryder's hand possessively on Martha's waist. They looked positively smitten with each other. "I heard she nursed him through his injury," Mrs. Crawford replied, her tone grudging. "Apparently, she was quite devoted." "Still, it is strange," Mrs. Henderson insisted. "A marriage of convenience turning into a love match. It is not natural." But other women in town were not so skeptical. They saw how Martha had transformed from a pitiful washerwoman to a confident, well-dressed ranch wife. They saw the beautiful dresses Ryder bought her, the way he treated her with respect and affection in public, the glow in her cheeks that spoke of happiness. Catherine Henderson cornered Martha outside the church one Sunday. "Mrs. Donovan, I hope you do not mind me saying, but you look wonderful." "Marriage clearly agrees with you." Martha smiled, thinking of waking up in Ryder's arms that morning, of the leisurely breakfast they had shared, of the way he had kissed her goodbye before heading out to check on the cattle. "It does, Miss Henderson. It truly does." "I wonder," Catherine said hesitantly, "how did you know he was the right one? Everyone says your marriage started as an arrangement, but now you seem so happy together." Martha considered the question. "I think sometimes the best relationships are not the ones that start with grand passion, but the ones that grow from mutual respect and shared values. Ryder and I built our love on a foundation of honesty and partnership. That makes it strong." Catherine sighed wistfully. "You are very lucky, Mrs. Donovan." "I am," Martha agreed, "but I also made a choice. I chose to take a chance on something uncertain because the alternative was slow misery. Sometimes luck is just being brave enough to say yes when opportunity knocks." As autumn turned to winter, Martha and Ryder grew closer still. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's preferences, each other's bodies in the quiet privacy of their bedroom. Ryder was a generous lover, patient and attentive, and Martha discovered that passion could be both tender and consuming. But their relationship was more than physical. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Ryder told her about building the ranch from almost nothing, about the loneliness of those early years, about his sister, and the letters she sent from Boston describing her life there. Martha told him about her childhood, about her parents and the happy years before the fever, about the slow decline into poverty and the strength it took to survive it. "I wish I had known you then," Ryder said one night, holding her close. "I wish I could have helped you sooner." "I was not ready then," Martha replied. "I was too proud, too angry at the world. I might have resented your help. But now, after everything, I can appreciate what we have. I think we both needed to become the people we are before we could find each other." "Maybe," Ryder conceded. "But I still hate thinking of you suffering." "It made me strong," Martha said, "and it taught me to value what I have. I do not take any of this for granted, Ryder. Not the house, not the food, not you. Every day feels like a gift." Ryder kissed her temple. "Every day with you is a gift to me too." Christmas brought Ryder's sister, Sarah, and her husband Thomas out from Boston for a visit. Martha was nervous about meeting them, worried that Sarah would resent her brother's choice of wife, or that she would not measure up to their expectations. But Sarah embraced her warmly the moment she arrived, her eyes sparkling with delight. "So you are the woman who finally got my stubborn brother to settle down," she said, laughing. "I have been waiting years for this." Sarah was petite and vivacious, with Ryder's same gray-blue eyes and an infectious laugh. Thomas was tall and scholarly, a lawyer who clearly adored his wife. They settled in easily, and Martha found herself enjoying their company more than she had expected. "Ryder wrote to me about you," Sarah confided one afternoon while the men were out looking at the horses. "He tried to make it sound like a practical arrangement, but I could read between the lines. He cared about you even then, I think. He just did not know it yet. Did he really?" Martha asked, fascinated. "Oh yes. The way he described you, it was not like he was talking about a business transaction. It was like he was defending someone he cared about. He said you had dignity and strength and courage." Sarah smiled. "Those are the qualities Ryder values most in the world. If he saw them in you, he was already halfway to loving you." The visit was wonderful, but it also made Martha think about the future. Sarah and Thomas had a son, a bright-eyed 2-year-old named James who ran around the ranch with boundless energy. Watching Ryder play with his nephew, seeing the gentle way he handled the child, Martha felt a longing she had not expected. She was 23 now. Ryder was 31. They had been married for 5 months, truly married for 3 of those months. Was it too soon to think about children? Was it something Ryder even wanted? She found out the answer on Christmas Eve. They had put little James to bed, and the 4 adults were sitting by the fire, drinking warm cider and talking quietly. Sarah was telling a story about James learning to walk when Ryder caught Martha's hand and squeezed it gently. "Maybe next Christmas we will have our own little one running around," he said, his voice soft but clear. Martha turned to him, her heart in her throat. "You want children?" "Of course I do," Ryder said, looking surprised. "I thought you knew that. I told you when I proposed that I wanted a family." "I know, but I did not know if you meant right away or if we would wait or—" Martha stopped, overwhelmed. Ryder pulled her closer, unconcerned with their audience. "Martha, I love you. I want to build a life with you, a real life. That includes children if you want them too." "I do," Martha said, tears pricking her eyes. "I want that very much." Sarah made a happy sound and Thomas smiled indulgently. "I think that is our cue to give you two some privacy," Sarah said, standing and pulling her husband toward the stairs. "We will see you in the morning." When they were alone, Ryder cupped Martha's face in his hands. "I should have asked you about this before. I should have made sure we were on the same page." "We are," Martha assured him. "We absolutely are." That night they made love with new purpose, new hope. And when Martha's courses did not come in January, they were both quietly thrilled. By February there was no doubt. Martha was expecting their first child. The pregnancy was both easier and harder than Martha had expected. The morning sickness was brutal, leaving her exhausted and miserable for weeks. But Ryder was endlessly patient, bringing her dry toast and weak tea, rubbing her back when she was sick, holding her when she cried from sheer exhaustion. "I am sorry," Martha said one morning after a particularly bad bout of sickness. "I am supposed to be managing the household, and instead I am useless." "You are growing our child," Ryder said firmly. "That is the most important work there is. Everything else can wait." Rosa took over more of the household duties, refusing to let Martha do anything strenuous. Even the ranch hands were protective, tipping their hats to her with extra respect, hurrying to help whenever they saw her trying to carry something heavy. But it was Ryder who truly amazed her. He read every book on pregnancy and childbirth he could get his hands on, asking the doctor detailed questions, making sure Martha had everything she needed. He built a beautiful cradle in the barn, carving their initials and the date into the headboard. He painted the smallest bedroom a soft yellow, installing curtains and setting up everything a baby would need. "You are going to be such a good father," Martha told him, watching him arrange blankets in the cradle for the 100th time. "I hope so," Ryder said. "I want to be. I want our child to grow up feeling loved and secure, never doubting that they are wanted." As her belly grew, Martha found herself reflecting on how far she had come. A year ago, she had been scrubbing other people's laundry, wondering how she would afford her next meal. Now she was the wife of a prosperous rancher, expecting their first child, secure and loved. It seemed impossible, like a dream she might wake from at any moment. But it was real. The baby moving inside her was real. Ryder's hand on her belly, feeling their child kick, was real. The future stretching out before them was real. When she went to town now, she held her head high. The pitying looks were long gone, replaced by envy and grudging respect. She was not the charity case anymore. She was Mrs. Ryder Donovan, and she had earned her place. "You look radiant," Catherine Henderson told her at the general store, genuine warmth in her voice. "Motherhood suits you." "Thank you, Catherine," Martha replied, and meant it. Even Mrs. Henderson had softened, though she would never admit she had been wrong about the marriage. "I suppose some arrangements do work out," was all she would say, but there was no malice in it. Martha no longer cared what they thought anyway. She had Ryder's love, she had a home, she had a future. Their opinions could not touch her anymore. The baby came on a hot August night, almost exactly a year after Ryder had first proposed. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Martha was sure she could not do it, could not survive another contraction. But Ryder was there, holding her hand, wiping her brow, telling her how strong she was, how much he loved her, how proud he was. And then, after what seemed like forever, there was a cry. A healthy, angry cry that filled the room with life. "It is a boy," the doctor announced, placing the squirming bundle on Martha's chest. "A fine, healthy boy." Martha looked down at her son, this tiny, perfect person she and Ryder had created together, and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. He had Ryder's dark hair and a furious red face, and he was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Ryder leaned over them both, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "Hello, little one," he whispered. "Welcome to the world. What should we name him?" Martha asked, unable to take her eyes off their son. "I was thinking Matthew," Ryder said. "After your father, if that is all right with you." Martha looked up at him, this man who had given her everything, who remembered details she had mentioned months ago, who wanted to honor the father she had lost. "Matthew Donovan," she said. "It is perfect." The first few months with baby Matthew were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. He was a demanding baby, wanting to eat constantly, waking multiple times a night. But Martha had never been happier. Even on the hardest days, when she was so tired she could barely stand, she felt blessed. Ryder was a devoted father, taking Matthew whenever he could to give Martha a break, walking the floor with him in the middle of the night, changing diapers without complaint. He sang to their son in his deep voice, taught him to track objects with his eyes, marveled at every tiny milestone. "I never knew I could love something this much," Ryder confessed one night, holding a sleeping Matthew against his chest. "I love you beyond measure, Martha. But this little one, he has stolen my heart completely." "I know exactly what you mean," Martha replied, leaning against Ryder's shoulder and looking down at their son. "It is terrifying and wonderful all at once." When Matthew was 3 months old, Sarah and Thomas came to visit again, bringing young James to meet his cousin. The two families spent a joyful week together, and Martha felt the life she had built settle even more firmly into place. "You know what I love most about watching you and Ryder?" Sarah said one afternoon while the men were outside with the children. "You actually like each other. So many married couples just tolerate each other, but you two genuinely enjoy being together. It shows." "He is my best friend," Martha said simply. "I never expected that when we married, but he is. He is the person I want to tell everything to, the person whose opinion matters most, the person who makes everything better just by being there." "That is real love," Sarah said softly. "The kind that lasts." The years that followed were full and happy. Matthew grew into a sturdy, curious boy with his father's eyes and his mother's determination. When he was 2, Martha got pregnant again, delivering a daughter they named Lily after Ryder's mother. 2 years after that came another son, Thomas, named for Sarah's husband who had become a dear friend. The ranch prospered under Ryder's careful management. They expanded the herd, bought more land, built a new barn. Martha ran the household with efficiency and grace, raising their children with love and discipline, managing accounts, hosting dinners for neighbors and business associates. But more than any material success, what mattered was the love they had built. Every night, no matter how busy the day had been, Ryder made time to sit with Martha on the porch, holding her hand, talking about their day. Every morning she woke in his arms, grateful for another day together. "Do you ever think about how we started?" Martha asked one evening when the children were asleep, and they sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "How you proposed to a washerwoman everyone pitied." "I think about it sometimes," Ryder admitted. "But mostly I just think about how lucky I am that you said yes." "I am the lucky one," Martha countered. "We are both lucky," Ryder said, pulling her closer. "Lucky we found each other. Lucky we were brave enough to take a chance. Lucky we built something real out of a practical arrangement." Martha thought about the woman she had been, standing in the mud while fine ladies turned away. She thought about the shack with the leaking roof, the hunger, the loneliness, the despair. And then she thought about the woman she was now, surrounded by love and security, raising 3 beautiful children with a man who adored her. "I am not that pitiful woman anymore," she said quietly. "You were never pitiful," Ryder corrected. "You were surviving impossible circumstances with courage and grace. But you are right that you are different now. Now you are fully yourself, with nothing holding you back, and you are magnificent." The years continued to pass in a rhythm of seasons and growth. Matthew grew tall and serious, already showing signs of his father's steady character. Lily was bright and mischievous, keeping them all on their toes. Thomas was still small, but showed promise of being the most stubborn of the 3, which both amused and exasperated his parents. When Martha was 30, Ryder surprised her with a trip to San Francisco. They left the children with Rosa and Sarah, who had moved back to California to be closer to family, and spent a week exploring the city together. They ate at fine restaurants, attended the theater, walked along the waterfront hand in hand like young lovers. "Thank you for this," Martha said on their last night, standing on the balcony of their hotel room looking out at the city lights. "For everything, really. For seeing something in me when no one else did. For giving me a chance. For loving me." Ryder wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Thank you for taking that chance, for being brave enough to say yes to a stranger, for building this life with me, for loving me back even though I am not romantic or smooth or any of the things a woman is supposed to want." Martha turned in his arms, cupping his face in her hands. "You are everything I want, Ryder Donovan. You are steady and honest and kind. You make me laugh. You support my dreams. You are an amazing father to our children. You love me not in spite of where I came from, but including all of it. That is more romantic than any pretty words could ever be." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and that night they loved each other with the passion that had only grown stronger over the years. When they returned home, the children ran to greet them, talking over each other in their excitement to share everything that had happened while they were gone. Martha scooped up Thomas while Ryder lifted Lily, and Matthew stood by proudly, trying to act grown up at 7 years old. "Did you miss us?" Martha asked, kissing Thomas's chubby cheek. "Yes," he said solemnly, "but Aunt Sarah made cookies." They all laughed, and Martha caught Ryder's eye over the children's heads. This was what they had built. Not just a house or a ranch or financial security, but a family. Love. A real home. The town that had once pitied her now looked at her with respect and perhaps a touch of envy. Martha Donovan had everything, they said. A handsome, successful husband who clearly adored her. Beautiful, healthy children. A lovely home. Wealth and security and happiness. But Martha knew the truth. She had not been given these things. She had fought for them, worked for them, risked everything for them. She had been brave enough to take a stranger's hand when he offered her hope. She had been strong enough to build love from the foundation of respect and partnership. She had been wise enough to see the value in a good man who offered honesty over romance. And Ryder, for his part, had found exactly what he needed. A partner who understood hard work, who valued honesty, who stood beside him through challenges and celebrated victories with equal grace. He had found a woman who loved him for who he was, not what he could provide. He had found home. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ryder planned a party at the ranch. Everyone from town was invited, including all the people who had once whispered about the pitiful washerwoman, and the rancher who married her out of what they assumed was misplaced charity. Martha stood in their bedroom, putting on the beautiful green dress Ryder had bought her for the occasion, and studied herself in the mirror. At 32, she was no longer the gaunt, desperate woman she had been. Good food and happiness had filled out her frame. Laughter and love had softened the hard edges that poverty had carved into her face. She looked like what she was, a confident, beloved woman in the prime of her life. Ryder came up behind her, fastening a necklace around her throat. It was a simple gold chain with a pendant, but it had belonged to his mother, and Sarah had given it to him to pass on to his wife. "You are so beautiful," he murmured, kissing the side of her neck. "I am the luckiest man alive." "We are both lucky," Martha replied, the phrase that had become their private mantra. The party was a grand success. The house was filled with laughter and music, children running through the rooms, adults talking and dancing and celebrating. Sarah and Thomas were there with their growing family, now including 2-year-old twins. Rosa and her family came, as did all the ranch hands and their wives. Even Mrs. Henderson attended, though she still pursed her lips at any display of affection between Martha and Ryder. But Catherine Henderson, now married herself to a kind shopkeeper, pulled Martha aside with tears in her eyes. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for the advice you gave me years ago about being brave enough to say yes when opportunity knocks. I almost did not accept when John proposed because I thought I should wait for grand passion. But I remembered what you said about building love on respect and partnership, and I took a chance. We are so happy together." Martha hugged her warmly. I am so glad. You deserve happiness, Catherine." As the evening wore on and the stars came out, Ryder found Martha on the porch where they had spent so many evenings together. The sounds of the party drifted through the open windows, but out here it was quiet and peaceful. 10 years, Ryder said, pulling her into his arms. Best 10 years of my life. Mine too, Martha agreed, resting her head on his chest and listening to the steady beat of his heart. Though I think the next 10 will be even better. And the 10 after that, Ryder added. And all the 10s that come after, Martha finished. They stood like that, wrapped in each other's arms under the stars, while inside their home, their children played and their friends celebrated. They had built something extraordinary out of a practical arrangement. They had found love where they least expected it. They had proven that sometimes the best things in life come not from grand gestures or romantic ideals, but from simple honesty, hard work, and two people brave enough to take a chance on each other. Martha thought about the woman she had been, standing in the mud, invisible to the world. And then she thought about the woman she was now, cherished and respected, surrounded by love. The transformation was complete. She was no longer someone to be pitied. She was someone to admire, to emulate, to envy not for what she had been given, but for what she had built. And as Ryder kissed her under the stars, she knew without a doubt that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the person she was meant to be with. The washerwoman and the rancher, the practical arrangement that became a grand love story. Their story. The years continued to unfold with the kind of quiet joy that comes from a life well lived. Matthew grew into a young man, eventually taking on more responsibility at the ranch. He had his father's work ethic and his mother's compassion, and Ryder often said he could not be prouder of the man his son was becoming. Lily developed a passion for horses, spending every spare moment in the barn. She had a gift with difficult animals, able to gentle even the wildest colts with patience and soft words. Martha saw so much of herself in her daughter, that same fierce determination to prove herself. Thomas, true to his early temperament, remained the family's wild card. Charming and unpredictable, he kept them all laughing with his antics, even as he sometimes drove them to distraction with his impulsiveness. Martha and Ryder grew older together gracefully, silver threading through their hair, lines deepening around their eyes, but their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger with each passing year, deepened by shared experiences and the knowledge that they had chosen each other every single day. On a crisp autumn morning, much like the one when Ryder had first proposed all those years ago, Martha stood in the same spot where her shack had once been. The town had torn it down years ago, and now it was just an empty lot near the creek. She did not come here often, but sometimes she felt the need to remember, to ground herself in the reality of how far she had come. Ryder found her there, knowing without being told where she would be. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together in comfortable silence. "Do you ever regret it?" Martha asked finally. "Taking a chance on me when you could have had anyone?" "Not for a single second," Ryder replied without hesitation. "You were always the one, Martha. I just had to be smart enough to see it." "We were both smart enough to see what mattered," Martha corrected, "and brave enough to build something real." They walked back to their wagon hand in hand, leaving the past behind where it belonged. The present was too good, too full, to waste time dwelling on what had been. They had children who loved them, grandchildren on the way now that Matthew was engaged to a sweet girl from town, a ranch that thrived, and most importantly, each other. That evening, as the sun set over the valley they called home, Martha and Ryder sat on their porch as they had countless times before. The routine never grew old because they never took it for granted. Every sunset was a gift, every moment together precious. "I love you, Martha Donovan," Ryder said, the words as sincere as they had been the first time he spoke them. "I love you, Ryder Donovan," Martha replied, her heart as full as it had ever been. And as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they sat together in perfect contentment, knowing that the best decision they had ever made was to take a chance on each other. The cowboy and the woman everyone pitied, who became the envy of every woman not for what she had, but for the love she had found and the life she had built. Their story, complete and perfect in its imperfect beginning, would echo through the generations that followed, a testament to the power of courage, partnership, and love that grew from the unlikeliest of beginnings into something truly extraordinary.